This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman.
This is George Newbern, the voice of Superman.
And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam.
Streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Hey everyone, welcome to the DCAU Review, this special episode that we're recording. We got really terrible news today. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you already know, but we learned, all of us today learned of the passing of the voice of Batman, Kevin Conroy, at the age of 66 years old, after a brief battle with cancer. He's survived by his husband and siblings, and there is an enormous sense of loss for all of us that knew him. Of course, I'm so emotional I didn't even introduce us. I'm Liam, and with me, as he always is Cal. Cal, it's a tough day to say the least. There's so many wonderful, beautiful tributes from friends and his coworkers and his peers. It's hard to put this into words how to feel right now.
Yeah. And you know, we talked about coming on and doing one of these, and it's hard because the reason we do the podcast is to, hopefully give people a break from reality sometimes, or a distraction from the terrible things that happen in the world. And, there's so much negativity, and there's so many things that you can look to and see and really be discouraged about what life is all about. But we do our best to for an hour a week, or an hour and 10 minutes, or whatever it turns out to be a week, to hopefully put some smiles on people's faces and give them some nostalgic feelings and bring them back to their childhood. And it's unfortunate that we're here doing this tribute show today for the man that was responsible in a large part for shaping many of our childhoods. The people that are listening to this podcast, no doubt, the people, you and I specifically, though, this losing such a legend, and in such a shocking and unexpected fashion, is difficult. It's difficult to come on here, but I think because he was such a legend, and because of how kind he was to the fans of the DCAU, and how he embraced this role as being this generation's Batman, a character that was so important to so many different people for so many reasons, and brought so much joy and happiness in whatever iteration of Batman that he was. When you heard Kevin Conroy delivering the lines for Batman, it just felt like you were safe, and you were at home, and that you could, you were that you recaptured that innocence that you had as a child, where that stuff that is happening in the world is an afterthought, or is something that you don't have to think about for the 22 minutes or the hour and a half, or whatever the time frame is.
Peace of mind is a hard thing to grab a hold of, and Kevin's contributions to this thing that we have a show about. We've been doing our show for 5 years. We just came across the 30th anniversary of the original Batman the Animated Series debuting. And if only for the brief moments where you're watching or rewatching those shows, whether as a child back then or as an adult now, you had peace of mind watching and listening to Kevin Conroy's Batman. And it's a dark cloud, certainly, hanging over everything today. This, I think in the future sometime, I don't want to speak for Cal, but I think we'll do maybe a more long form tribute series.
Absolutely.
I'd like to get a lot of, some other folks on and just ask them what Kevin Conroy's Batman meant to them. So that we're not looking to make the definitive tribute today. This is more just a sharing of our feelings and our grief and the joy we find in looking back on this, even in the midst of our grief. I put something on my personal Twitter today. I don't really advertise that on this show, but um, we don't really talk about this side of our lives very often. But when I was 8 years old, and you were then a little bit older than me, our our parents got divorced, and
Mm-hmm.
things like Star Wars, things like Batman the Animated Series, eventually Batman Beyond and Justice League and all that. That again, that escapism, that peace of mind, it goes from being something fun that you like to something you kind of crave and you need. And you mentioned kind of feeling secure, feeling like you're at home when you heard Batman, when you heard his Batman. And I don't know if I appreciated this other than maybe when Carrie Fisher died, of course, Princess Leia a few years ago. I don't know if I've ever experienced the grief of a celebrity death like this before, but it took me back to when I was maybe the most emotionally vulnerable I'd ever been as a child.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm trying not to sniffle and blow out the audio here a lot, but it's difficult here. But it took me back to a very vulnerable time in my younger life, and it made me appreciate it all the more for what escapism, for what fiction of any kind can mean to anybody, but especially to a child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so much of that came and not, there's a tendency in these moments when someone famous passes away to, to make them larger than life, or to make them out to be more, or to, to personalize their death in a way that can seem cliched. And but I can tell you that the impact, I can remember you play with your action figures as a child.
Mm-hmm.
When you're Batman, you're mimicking Kevin Conroy's voice.
Yeah.
Batman Batman Kevin Conroy was Batman. Like, there was no separation from the two. Like, that voice, his performance became Batman. And when you begin hearing it in other forms of media, when, outside of the DCAU, when he started doing the Batman Arkham games and was once again reteamed with Mark Hamill, there that made those games so much more
Yes.
enjoyable to me, because again, in your head, you have a voice for who Batman is. When you're reading comic books, you have a voice for who Batman is. And when Batman sounds like the Batman that you called home for so many pivotal years of your childhood,
Yes.
it does just it just continues that thread, like you said, of feeling safe, a feeling of the escapism,
Mm-hmm.
and his ability, a classically trained actor that was bound for stage productions and having little to no success in his stage life, happens to audition for a little Batman animated series project that he knew little to nothing about.
What was the likelihood of a New York actor who primarily did classics? I worked for Joe Papp at the Public, San Diego Shakespeare, Hartford Stage. I did a lot of regional theater, did a lot of theater on Broadway and off Broadway. But a classically trained actor, what were the odds of the first animated audition he's invited to do is the animation of Batman? The first audition I went on for a voiceover.
And you didn't even want to audition for that role.
I wanted to audition for Bullock. Because I thought those are the character, I could be a really good character. I thought that'd be a more fun character. And because of the kind of roles I played, Edgar in Lear, Edmund in Lear, Achilles, Orestes, Prince Hal, all of these classic epic heroes, that the one role they would want me to read for is Batman, who is, of all the DC characters, of all the animated universe, he is a classic Shakespearean type of actor. His whole life drama is a Greek drama. I mean, it's so epic. It's so...
His parents killed.
It's a Greek drama. When Bruce Timm was describing to me the character, because the only Batman I knew was the Adam West Batman from the 60s. And Bruce Timm said, no, that's not what we're doing. Everyone loves Adam West, but that's not what we're doing. He said, no, and he described to me the character and the tragedy of the background. So I just put myself into, just put in my imagination in the booth. I went to this place and, this dark kind of broody voice. And I sort of found this character just in the audition, just improvising.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in interviews he stated that he was even reluctant to do it because he didn't have any desire to play a Adam West style character, which is what he assumed the Batman was going to be for this cartoon. So for him to then try out for this role, absolutely nail the dichotomy of the Bruce Wayne Batman character, to fully embrace and understand it in the audition, to blow the people away responsible who had been searching. What did they say? I think there's a story that Bruce Timm and Andrea Romano tell about auditioning just hundreds of actors and just never quite finding the person. And then the moment that Kevin Conroy opened his mouth, it was game over. They were like, all right, we found him. We finally got him. Like, so many things had to happen for that to fall into place there. It's not and so for that reason, I don't think it's cliched to say that the impact that his Batman made on our lives as individuals, and as we know, so many people, he would go up to, he was doing so many comic conventions for so many years, and just the video clips that you can find of him on YouTube interacting with fans who, folks, we know, like, sometimes comic book fans, we can be super goofy, super weird, super socially awkward. And I don't think I never saw a single video where Kevin Conroy wasn't willing to smile, do the Batman voice, shake hands, sign autographs. He embraced and loved that role for so many reasons, and so well that it's this, him passing is truly a reason to mourn. It's a sad day. It's a sad day that we will never again hear a new performance from him. But on the flip side of that is we have so much Kevin Conroy Batman, that will live on for decades and centuries beyond his actual performance, that it's going to be a long time before people forget the name of Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, I think one thing, those con appearances and the reunions, and of course came back to voice Batman, as you said, in the Arkham games or in some of the more recent direct-to-video DC animated movies. He got to play Bruce Wayne in live action in the Arrowverse a couple of years ago. He got to have his flowers while he was still here. And I think that's invaluable. I think, and you see that, and in the way, again, a lot of tributes poured in from all the actors. We're not going to read through all of them. Certainly, we couldn't. I don't think we have enough time for that. But you saw whether it was Susan Eisenberg or Michael Rosenbaum, anyone who was on the con circuit with him. Diane Pershing, John Glover, Lauren Lester. Just the warmth and the kindness he had was just a real, and the love he had for his fans, and getting to, give that experience to people and let them see their Batman in person and meet their Batman. I think he did appreciate what that meant to people, and and the fact that he was able to see that. I always go back to, maybe my favorite movie of all time. It's almost Christmas time is upon us. It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole story of that movie is about one man being shown what he meant to an entire town of people.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, Kevin Conroy in his case got to travel the world and go to cons in Mexico and Ireland and all over the world and hear what he meant to an entire world's worth of people as
Yeah.
this character. So if you're looking for the silver linings in these very dark clouds, I think it is something to hold on to that he did. I think he did know and he did appreciate certainly what he meant to all of us, even if not every single one of us ever got to personally meet him and shake his hand and thank him.
Mm-hmm.
He not only appreciated that, but reciprocated that to those that were thanking him and giving their joy to him. I think he was, such a kind and generous man to give that back to all of us. He through the modern wonders of the internet and the Cameo service, he intros our show every week.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you've ever seen any of the other cameos that he's left, he took a lot of personal time and effort with the messages that he gave to people. Our friend Maddie from Watchtower Database has a lovely message that they put on the Watchtower Database social media, and I invite you to check it out if you haven't seen it already. But he was so kind, and he just was such a really, he always seemed to know what to say when talking about anything, whether it was something as silly as who would win in a fight between Batman and Superman, or something more serious, like talking to someone who was going through a particularly difficult time in their personal lives. So him being able to give that gift to other people and then also receive our all of our joys back, I think is it's great that he got to experience that, and that before his passing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's still hard to grasp. It's still hard to really consider the fact that there's such finality in this, and um, but as you said, there is comfort in the fact that he hopefully understood how loved that he was, and not to not I don't want to get uh, controversial or like, but I know there's been some conjecture on Twitter about lack of appreciation for voice actors versus actual movie actors and live action actors, and how voice actors are vastly underappreciated, which I wholeheartedly agree. And some of that is
Yes.
just the medium in which they work. A visible human being is always going to be more recognizable than somebody who only is known by their voice. But I think it's wonderful to recognize that he did get to play Batman so many times, and then finally when the Arrowverse did the big crossover, they went right to him to
Mm-hmm.
cast as this alternate universe future Bruce Wayne Batman. It was just the culmination of somebody who was at times could be underappreciated, and whether people know his name or not, they know him by his performance.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman. Like people know that line. I literally just stood behind a guy at Comic Con who
Mm.
used a form of that phrase and made Jim Lee inscribe his vinyl pop with that phrase. And the funny thing is, the guy thought it was from the Batman, and Jim Lee corrects him. He's like, no, that's Kevin Conroy. That's Batman animated series. So the line, the performance. You may not have known the name behind the voice, but I just think it was so awesome that he finally got to portray Batman in live action. It would have been interesting to see him get more opportunities to do that. But I love that he didn't in any way feel bitter or upset. Um, it was always he was always very, very joyful and happy in all the clips that I ever saw of him interacting with people, and that's not something you can say about every single person.
Mm-hmm.
So especially if you feel like you've been slighted or you feel like you haven't gotten the recognition that you deserve. There's so many people that get bitter because of that. But yeah, it's interesting. I know that you said that there was you were listening to him on Michael Rosenbaum,
Mm-hmm.
what's the Flash and Lex Luthor on Smallville. But I know that you said that there was another story that you shared with me that was really so heartwarming, and I think gives you a little bit of insight into what Mr. Conroy's personality really was, and that is somebody who did look for those, look not to be bitter about things, and look
Yeah.
not to be um, to hold resentment against people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for he speaks about the death of his father, and they had a very contentious relationship. He talks about there's a lot of alcoholism, a lot of abuse, but he had sort of after a an acting mentor of his had sort of told him that you should, if you do not do everything you can to make this right, you will regret it forever. He sort of took that advice to heart, and he took care of his father in his last years. And on the night that his father died, he said that his father sort of stared out the window and kept uttering this same refrain of the great Conroy, and sort of shaking his head. And he took that to mean that he was sort of looking, his father was sort of looking over his own life and looking at how he had wasted his life. And he Kevin spoke about how he took that moment to not as a moment to be bitter for all of the hardships that had been caused directly by his father, and he had every reason to be bitter. He had every
Mm-hmm.
reason to hold on to that hatred in his heart for the
Yep.
rest of his life.
Yep.
And he chose to instead look at that as the best lesson anyone ever gave him, which was how not to live, to not live with hate in your heart, to appreciate those that are around you, to appreciate, to make sure that you give love and support to those that love and support you. And I thought that was such a beautiful story. He kind of finished it off and said that he has no ghosts. He had no ghosts in his life because he had sort of learned from his father, and through this experience of taking care of his father in his father's dying days, how to live and how not to live, more importantly. And the fact that he was able to, amongst all of that pain and frustration and horrible feelings that one could and should have for a situation like that, he took only sort of the best lesson out of it and looked at it as his father kind of giving him this one last piece of advice before he passed. And I was so moved by that. It was such, I thought, such a beautiful way to look at it, because and again, if I were in the same situation he was, I don't know that I could have taken that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would have been willing to try to make that effort to be there for my father on his deathbed, if I had the type of childhood that he had. So
Yeah.
the just the that podcast with Michael Rosenbaum, it's a great listen. He also speaks about getting cast as Batman, some of the stories you were already telling Cal about being a non voiceover working theater actor and suddenly getting cast in this animated series. It's a great podcast, and I definitely recommend everyone going out of their way to listen to it. But yeah, it was that particular story is so beautiful, and I think such a great lesson that he took, and then he then passed on to everyone that's listened to it. That there is a way to find a way to make yourself better and to make the people around you better, even in these moments of truly terrible crisis that you might find yourself in.
I think I think that's a great charge to give people, is to seek out some of that. If you didn't know much about him other than his performance of Batman, there's several, I think, podcasts that he's done over the last several years that you can go back and check out and hear some of that content. Not only help you get some of the history of Batman the Animated Series and some stories about him and his the first time that he interacted with Mark Hamill's Joker, and some of the other great stories that he had. But learning more about him as a person and his story, it gives you that better insight to appreciate the man that he was. And the I think the thing that we also, I'll speak for you and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the best tribute that you can give him is to share those things, share what impact his, as silly as it may be. Like, I think the more that we stuff feelings and the things that we're experiencing down, the worse it gets for us. So if you're sad about this, if you have thoughts and things that you felt impacted by Mr. Conroy's incredible performance as Batman, or whatever iteration of Batman, maybe you were too young or weren't even born when Batman the Animated Series was on, but Batman Beyond or Justice League was
Hmm.
your experience, or your first experience, or maybe it's in one of the DC animated films. I think talking about it and sharing about it, we'd love to hear your thoughts and memories and the impact that he made. Liam posted a beautiful tribute to him on our Instagram at DCAU Review, and on Twitter as well. You can interact with us, or if you don't feel comfortable sharing your thoughts in the public forum, send us a DM. We love to chat with you. And nothing is worse than going through sad times, or times of mourning by yourself. So if you're out there, you're listening to this, and you just want to share one of those thoughts, if that's therapeutic for you, I encourage you to do so with us or with other people. And I think continuing to enjoy his performances, and looking back at the effort and appreciating the tremendous work that was his career, is such a great way that you can continue to appreciate his what he meant to you. And revisiting, that's why we're going to continue as long as we possibly can to
That's
talk
right.
about these cartoons. you know it weirdly is. And I don't think, before Liam said it today, we talk about nostalgia every single week, but
Hmm.
nostalgia is such a powerful thing. Like, there is a reason why nostalgia is the strongest motivator for so many people. It can be dangerous, it can be exploited, but
Hmm.
there's so many great things about nostalgia that can be therapeutic for you, that you can really look back and remember those times, and remember the good times that you had, or the things that you've experienced in life. And I encourage you, continue to do so.
Yeah.
We're going to continue doing it as well.
Yeah, yeah, and like Cal said, what if you don't feel comfortable sharing it publicly, you can send us a DM on Instagram or Twitter if you'd rather share your thoughts privately. That's totally fine. Because I don't think any emotion or any memories you want to share, none of them are a bad idea. So, I hope people feel comfortable sharing that stuff with us. Like we said, we will definitely have a more long form tribute. Well, we're gonna work on in the weeks and months to come here. I'm sure we'll be talking about Kevin Conroy and for
I
the
think,
rest of our podcast's life.
well, I was going to say, I think it would honor him, whether it's next month, or it's maybe in January. But I think having a Kevin Conroy month would be great, where we just
Yeah.
look back at some of the, we've already kind of taken a look back at some of the best Batman the Animated Series episodes, or some of the ones that we wanted to revisit. But I think revisiting some of those ones where his performance just stood out as
Hmm.
just an incredible one. Right off the top of my head, his performance as Bruce in Robin's Reckoning, where
Yeah.
he counsels Dick, um, as Dick is going through his own mourning, and
Yeah.
the way that the sympathetic way that he delivers that line is Bruce, where Dick is asking him, "Does the hurt ever go away?"
Hmm.
And his beautiful response to that, and the way he delivers those lines, just absolutely perfect. Like, or when he's pleading with his parents,
Yeah.
I didn't expect to be happy. Like, I
Mm.
didn't expect this in Mask of the Phantasm, where he's struggling with this idea. Like, what a performance! What an incredibly delivered line. So I think revisiting some of those all time great performances from him is definitely on the docket here, whether it be next month or coming up in January. But
Yes.
I'm very much looking forward to, as you said, we'll continue this for the duration of the podcast. We rarely miss an opportunity to praise Mr. Conroy in whatever medium we are discussing a performance that he's doing. But I think it'll be extra special now when we talk about it. Knowing that this is his legacy. This is what will live on for years and years and years after he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to, like we said, exploring him and doing a tribute that will hopefully do him justice in the future. As we wrap up today, I did have a few quotes I thought would be nice for us to read. Um, I'm gonna read it. This is right from the Warner Brothers press release that was released earlier this morning when the news first hit. We have a quote from Andrea Romano, who said, Kevin was far more than an actor whom I had the pleasure of casting and directing. He was a dear friend of 30 plus years whose kindness and generous spirit knew no boundaries. Uh, Mark Hamill added that Kevin's warm heart, delightfully deep laugh, and pure love of life will be with us forever.
Mm.
He said he said that Kevin was one of his favorite people on the planet, and that he loved him like a brother.
Mm.
And then finally, we had some quotes from Paul Dini here, who said that Kevin brought a light with him everywhere. Whether in the recording booth, giving it his all, or feeding first responders during 9/11, or making sure every fan who ever waited for him had a moment with their Batman, he was a hero in every sense of the word, and that he was irreplaceable and eternal.
Mm.
Which is not surprisingly, perhaps Paul Dini has a way with words, but and I know I think I sent that to you, Cal. I thought Clancy Brown, of course, the voice of Lex Luthor on Superman and Justice League, and who worked with Kevin many times over the years, I thought had a pretty great summation of what Kevin meant as an actor.
Yeah, it's I had to take a deep breath here because this one's pretty great.
Yeah.
It says Bruce imagined him, talking of course about Bruce Timm. Andrea found him, and once found, Kevin kicked the door open for all of us to bring to you the amazing characters of the DCAU. Kevin, my friend, my colleague, my hero. We will all miss you terribly. You are a singular soul. Thank you. Now rest. Man,
Yeah.
I love that too, because you look at the actors, you look at the people here who are sending in tributes. Clancy Brown is an actor in his own right that has a quite legendary career between not only voice acting but also has done some great live action work as well. So for him to say that Kevin was the one that kicked the door in for and really set the precedent for everybody else in the DCAU. Every voice that came after Kevin was first. The door was first kicked in by Kevin Conroy himself to bring in these legendary actors and these people to just give these incredible performances. So that's somebody that we talk about a lot. We've talked about a lot of people potentially being on the Mount Rushmore of voice actors for the DCAU. Kevin Conroy is undoubtedly it's not pick number one. He's the number one overall draft pick. And it's so incredible to see somebody who in his own right is his own celebrated. It's Mr. Krabs, for goodness sake. Like the man is the voice of a character on the arguably the most popular children's cartoon of the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he here is giving praise as the man who set the precedent for the entire DCAU in Kevin Conroy. So, man, it doesn't get bigger than that. I think forget the Mount Rushmore. I think we just give him the Lincoln Memorial or
That's right.
the Washington Monument or something. Like just he gets his own place to be honored.
Absolutely. And I think as we wrap up here, as mentioned, Kevin was pretty active on Cameo, and I want to share just these words from. You can find it it's at the bat_family. Shared this cameo that she was gifted, and these are Kevin's own words here, and I think this is a good way to go out for today. You don't have to be a superhero to want to give to your family, your friends, or to leave the world a better place.
Hmm.
All you have to do is try, to care enough to try. What's important is the people in your life, the lives you touch, and the people who touch your life. So that'll wrap us up for today. I thank you everyone for listening. Like we said, please feel free to share messages with us on Twitter or Instagram of your own personal memories, or leave them in the comments if you're listening to this on YouTube. And on one last personal note, Cal, you and I are fortunate in that we've had a very good relationship for my whole life.
Mhm.
But doing this show has given us a reason, an extra reason to be in constant contact with each other.
Yep.
And to speak to each other every week. And if it's 5 or 10 minutes before we record and we talk to each other about our work or something funny that happened or something, it's always great, and it's never time wasted. And without Kevin, we don't have that. So I love you, man. And I
love you too.
And we love Kevin Conroy for that.
So. Boy, do we ever. No, that's the perfect way to end it. Absolutely. Thanks everybody for listening. We will catch you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.